Hello, everybody. I'm Alan Underwood with codingblocks.net. And I'd mentioned on the podcast that I've been playing with ChatGPT to sort of see how it would help a developer do things, right? And I also mentioned that I happen to be coaching my son's baseball team in recreation, and how one of the challenges is setting lineups, not batting lineups, setting the fielding lineups for your team. Like, especially if you have 12 players on your team, you got to bench 3 players every inning. Well, you're not allowed to bench the same player 2 innings in a row, et cetera, et cetera. And it can get complicated, and it can be really frustrating for a new coach. So I figured, hey, this would be a great way to see, hey, what can ChatGPT do for me to bootstrap an application like that? So with that said, let's go ahead and see what it'll do for us. So first thing, I'm logged into openai.com. I'm in the ChatGPT. I'm using 3.5. I'm not paying for 4 yet. I don't know. Maybe I will here in the future. But first thing you want to do, come over here, create a new chat. So I'm going to tell it what I'm interested in, right? So I'm going to say, basically, I want to tell it, hey, create me an application that will allow me to set my baseball fielding positions in each inning. Set player fielding positions for each inning of a baseball game. All right, create an application that will set player fielding positions for each inning of a baseball game. All right, I think that's good enough. Let's see what it says. All right, so it's going to start spitting out a bunch of information. Let's see what it says here. So this will require a significant amount of development effort, and it's way bigger than what a single response can do. But I'm going to provide you with an outline. Okay, so that's cool. So requirements and user interface. Okay, so you'd probably want to do that. That makes sense. Data storage, decide where you want to put this stuff. That's pretty good. Input players and positions. Okay, I like this. I like where it's going. It seems like it understood what I was saying pretty well. So you can see here, it's got little chunks of Python code that it's showing us, right? And I didn't even say, hey, I want this in Python. So we'll mess with that here in a minute, but it's interesting that it's its default. So set player positions, you can see, enter the number of innings. You've got that. So technically it's not even going to cap you to 9. You can put in as many as you wanted. And then look, check it out. It understands baseball enough. This is pretty cool to where it knows that you got a P for pitcher, C for catcher, first base, second, third, shortstop, left field, center field, right field. Pretty cool. Didn't have to tell it much to get it there. So that's awesome. Display the player positions. Okay, so you've got that. I don't see anything about the players yet. I assume that they'll have something that down there for that. Okay, check it out. They've got a little while loop. Set player positions, display the player position. So they're basically creating like a little console app for you so that you can do a lot of this. That's pretty nifty. Okay, remember this is a basic outline. All right, cool. That's awesome. I think this is a pretty decent little start, right? Now, one thing that I want to mention here is looking at the player positions, they've got all the real positions on the field. Well, if you know anything about baseball, if you don't, it doesn't matter. We're not going to go deep into it, but you always have you have 9 players on the field at a time. So let's assume you have 11 players on your team. That means that you've got 2 people benched every inning. And if you're talking about recreation, the whole point of recreation is making sure all your players get to play in the game, right? So you want to make sure that you don't ever have players sitting the bench multiple innings in a row. And we'll get to that. So the first thing I'm going to do is say, hey, we want to add a bench position, right? So the fielding positions should also include a bench position. Let's see what it says here. Sure, we can modify the previous outline to include a bench position. All right, let's see what it did here. So this is one frustrating thing. So I've got my screen blown up so you can watch this on basically any device, right? Like you could watch this on a phone and see fine. So I have to scroll down to see some of this stuff, but check it out. Look, all I did was give it some human communication, right? Just a regular English sentence, and check it out. It put bench in here. The thing for me though is if I'm going to have all these abbreviations for everything else, maybe I don't want it to say bench. I want it to be like B. So let's just say that, see what happens. So, hey, can we use BN for the bench position? I mean, maybe, of course, BN instead of bench. I mean, look, guys, that's, guys, gals, whoever's watching this, that's pretty cool, right? I mean, I'm using English. There it is, BN at the end. That's pretty amazing. So now I'm going to go down, and this is all pretty good. I don't see anything where I can set any information about the players though. So I think maybe I want to add some information. Would like to add player information as well, such as name and let's see, name. We'll just go with name first. I would like to add player such as name as well. Maybe name and age. Let's see what that does. Sure, we can add applications to include player information such as name and age. Look, this is pretty sweet. Hey, we're going to use a dictionary to store player information along with the positions. All right, so I like that. That's kind of where I would have been going in my head if I was, pseudo coding this. Let's see, where does it have? Display player positions. Check it out. Enter player name, player age. So for position. Okay, so that's interesting. I don't know that I would have done that just like this. So really, it's doing this for every inning. So through every inning, you're basically having to enter this information over and over. So what if I say I would like to be able to create the players first and then use those players for each inning position. Fielding. That's fairly complex what I just said. Who knows what it's going to come up with. I would like to be able to create the players first and then use those players for each inning's fielding position. Let's see what it does. In my mind, what I'd do is I'd have a player object, right? And then that thing would get plugged in to each inning. Let's see what it does here. This should be interesting. Oh, check it out. So I haven't even gone up. They're creating a player database. So it knows, hold on. Let's go up and see what it says. We can modify the application to create a player database. Like, this is pretty phenomenal. The player database will store the player information during each inning setup. The player can select players from the database for their corresponding fielding positions. That's pretty beautiful, really. We'll look at the code here in a second. Okay, so it just kind of reiterates what it said, just like a good essay in your English class. So check it out. We have a definition for create player. We have the player name. We have the age. So that's excellent. Set player position. So it's going to roll through the innings and it's going to tell you, hey, which player do you want to add? That's not bad. I mean, with just a few iterative, giving it some more context as to what I want, that's pretty good. Also, I wanted to point out, I don't know if you noticed, but by default, it just started writing this stuff in Python. I didn't ask it to do it in Python. I have no qualms with it, but just for kicks, what if I say, I don't know. I like .NET. I also like TypeScript, and I think JavaScript is a little bit easier to just kind of get rolling with. It's a non-compiled language. So maybe let's say, hey, I'd like to convert this to TypeScript. Because maybe I plan on doing this in Node.js and I'll want to put a front end on it as well. And, living all in the JavaScript world might make it a little bit sweet. So sure, below is the TypeScript version of the baseball game application. So check it out. Now we have an interface. Yeah, this is pretty sweet. So it took that Python code and look, it even, if we go up and we look at how it wrote these things for Python, this is idiomatic Python right here. So this, it's not snake case. What do they call this thing? I can't even remember. At any rate, where you have the underscores in between the words, that's how you do this in Python. That is the standard way to write Python code. Check it out. When we said to do it in TypeScript, it even went and did idiomatic TypeScript coding. So your standard for a class or an interface is cap casing every one of the words. And then when you get down into the methods, it's lowercase or camel case, right? So player database, like that's pretty phenomenal. So we've done a few things here, and I'm going to throw a few more wrenches into it. Hi, I just want to take a quick pause and say, hey, if you're liking this, if you're enjoying this content, if you want more like it, please do leave us a thumbs up and share this with somebody. If you don't mind, if there's somebody that you think might benefit from this, please do share this video with them, and also subscribe to the channel. And with that, I'll let you get back to the rest of the ChatGPT. So let's see, what did they say about this? This code used Node.js. Okay, that's perfect. That's exactly what I would assume for a command line type application. So what I'm going to say is, hey, I would like to basically say, to be able to assign positions that I think each player should be able to play. I would like, so how would I say this to it? I would like each player to have a set of positions they are capable of playing, and I would like to assign a rating for that position for that player from 1 to 10. Let's see what this does. I mean, that's an insane amount of information to throw at it. So sure, we can enhance the player data structure to include the player's capabilities and their ratings for each position. All right. It understood it. So player capability, check this out. All right. So that's cool. The player, it has an array of capabilities now. And the capability, check it out. So it has the position and it has the rating we want to give it. And it understood from what I said that I want it to be 1 to 10, that it was a number, and the position is going to be the string, a P, 1B or whatever, right? So if we look down here, we have the position. That's all cool. Let's see. This is create interface. That's the standard in and out. Player database has the list of players, positions per inning. All right, so check this out. Here's the create player. So the player has a name, age, and then the capabilities. Down here, it's actually asking you this information. So at the command line, enter the player name. You're going to type that in, right? Enter the player age. We're going to do that, and then create the player capabilities. So check this out. From the command line, we now have this information here. Enter the number of positions the player can play. That's phenomenal. Let's see, what else we got? Let I add number of positions. So the number of positions, it's telling you that you can put as many as you want in there. It doesn't really make sense because you're limited by the number of positions on the field, which is 9. But whatever. So you're going to tell it maybe that player can play 3 positions, right? Now it's going to say enter the position. And it even tells you which positions are available. That's awesome. And sorry for highlighting to go back and forth. It's easier than scrolling down and trying to find it. Enter the player's rating 1 to 10 for the position. Now, granted, I didn't tell it what 1 would be. Like, is that good or is it the best or vice versa? I mean, that's kind of up to you at this point. But check it out. That's pretty sweet. So now it goes through and lets you set the player's positions for each inning, etc. So the same type of stuff that we had earlier. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. All right, so that's excellent. Let's go a little bit further. Now I want to tell it a player cannot be benched 2 consecutive innings. Let's see what it says. Sure, we can add check to ensure a player not be benched. To achieve this, we'll keep track of the previous innings players and exclude them from the options when setting the positions. It's exactly what you would do as a developer. Like, hey, I now need to store some state for these things so that I know, and check this out, man. This is awesome. So select the player, blah. It's making sure that the player index is there. Let's see, what else we got? Exclude players from the previous inning. That's most excellent. So let's see, did it select a player from the database position for first base? Oh, check it out, check it out. So it's actually doing this for each position. So that's interesting. Select a player for position P, for position C. So the way that this did it for us is it's actually going to ask you about every single position for each. Now, check this out. Down here, it's saying for the bench, and it's basically going to say you can't do it if it's the same one. So that's pretty nifty. All right, so I mean, this is already a really good jump start, in my opinion. I mean, one thing to note, and you'll probably see this just by looking at it, right? You've got all this code, and it's basically doing it in one file, right? If you're creating this thing as a developer, you're really going to take this code and you're going to separate it out into different files, right? Like you're probably going to have a player class file. You're going to have a game class file, maybe an inning, that kind of thing, right? Like that's all stuff that you're going to have to work out. In this player database thing, if we scroll back up here, where was it? Let's see. Actually, instead of doing all this, let's say, can you show me all the code in one block? I don't even know if it'll do that. Certainly. Oh, sweet. So here's the complete. All right. So pretty sweet. It's going through, it's generating everything for me so that I could basically, like, in my thought, what you would do now is after it's done writing all this stuff out, then you would go up to the top of this thing and say copy code. The application allows, okay, so sweet. So you come up here, hit copy code, probably go to your favorite editor or Visual Studio Code, whatever, and drop that thing in there. And now you would start slicing and dicing this thing up, right? You would start figuring out how you want to do things. Now, just for kicks, let's try something here. So right now, this is very much a run the console app, enter in the players every single time, enter in the positions every single time. As a coach, as somebody who's going to have these same players on the team every single day, you don't want to do that. So what if I would like the players to be saved so I don't have to re-enter their information every time? Let's see what it says here. To save the player's information between, look, it even punctuated it properly, right? Players possessive. That's awesome. Between sessions, we can use data storage mechanism. In this example, we use a simple JSON file. Hey, cool. Not a bad start. We'll add functions to save the player data to a file when a new player is created and load it when the application starts. So what it just said is, all right, we're going to save this out to a JSON file, and every time we run the application, we're going to look for that JSON file and load it up. All right, that's not how you do it if you're going to put this thing on the web or anything like that, but man, that's a really good start. If you're using something like Mongo, it's almost a one-to-one mapping on how you'd want to store things. Granted, again, you're probably going to slice and dice things up, put them into different collections or whatever, but wow, what a sweet jump start. So look at this. Player data file path. Let's look at this thing. So it's got the directory name players.json. So it's even named it. Save player database. So it already knows to take the JSON, stringify it so it can save it as a string, and then it's going to write it out to that file. Like, man, that's awesome. Load player database. Read the file from the thing, then JSON parse it, load it up. That's absolutely killer. Now check it out. Hey, previous code remains unchanged. But again, we already saw, we can say, hey, spit this out into one block for me, and it'll do it. So really, really powerful stuff. All right, so that's pretty cool. Very cool. What if I say, I want to be able to, I don't know. I'm trying to think of another thing that I might want to do if I was doing this. So I've got it to where it's going to save the players. I would also like to save the lineups from game to game. My guess is it's going to try and create another JSON file. So let's see what it says. Sure, we can enhance the application, save lineups from game to game. To achieve this, we'll add a storage mechanism for saving and loading the players' lineups We'll use separate JSON files for each game, and each file will contain the player lineups for that specific game. That's awesome. So game data folder path, check that out. Like, seriously, I think, we could continue on with this for a while. Really what my goal here was to show you just how powerful this is for prototyping your ideas out, right? Because we've all, as developers, we've all created something that somebody asked us to, but as soon as they see it, they're like, oh man, what if, can we add this? Can we add that? And what this does right here is it allows you to do that in a way that's not frustrating for a developer, right? Like I don't even know that this would necessarily be a case, but just imagine you're sitting down with a product manager and you're sort of throwing out ideas for something, and you can iteratively go through this process with that person or even a couple of people. And you can sort of form this idea to get all those, oh, wow, what if we can do this into this thing up front, and then go from there and really create an application. So we've seen some cool stuff here. And again, I've been throwing some decently complex language at it, like things that if it didn't understand baseball, this was going to be really painful, right? I didn't have to explain anything about baseball to it. I didn't really have to explain anything at this point. Even when I said I want to add a bench position, it sort of just understood what I was trying to do. So here's where I'm curious. Like, I just want to ask some more leading questions. Like, can I store the game information? Can I store the players and games in a database rather than a JSON file? I have no idea what it's going to do right here. Maybe it'll be good. Maybe it'll be bad. Using a database provides more scalability, better query capabilities, and better data persistence across multiple runs of the application. We'll use SQLite as the database. Okay, that's pretty awesome. So check it out. It's even giving you the NPM installs that you need to do to even make this happen. So what's really cool here is they've even done it in the context of a developer. So first, you're going to install SQLite 3, but then you're going to also save it as a dev dependency. So when you run this thing from your local machine or whatever, it will load up SQLite 3. That's amazing. Let's see what else we got. So check this out. Now we've got imports. So before, you'll notice if you go back and look at all the code that's been generated so far, it was, so we did have file system and path. It was basically just using native types and everything. Now that we're introducing more things, so the file system, when it was writing out to JSON, and path, same thing. Now it's got SQLite 3. So it's even adding that stuff in. Now, again, it's putting it all in a single file, which isn't ideal, but this is a great jump start. All right. So I'm not even going to mess with all this stuff. That's looking pretty good. So I've shown some of the powerful stuff here. Oh, look, check it out. We've created 2 database tables, players and lineups. That's amazing. All right. So one last thing I think that would be interesting that I'm going to add to this is, do you have any other suggestions for the application? Let's see what it gives us. All right, here are a few additional suggestions to enhance the baseball game application. Error handling, update and delete players, view player capabilities, simulate games. Interesting. Generate reports, improve user interface. Consider using a library like inquire.js. Never even heard of that. It's amazing. Create interactive prompts and menus. All right, that's pretty cool. If I wanted to keep this as a console app, save game results, player search, handle tie games. Okay, so that's all really cool stuff. What about, can you create a web UI? I don't know how to create a web. However, I can guide you on how to create a web UI. Okay, so this is cool, but looking at it, basically they're saying they're going to give you the steps of what you'd have to do if you want to do this yourself. So, I mean, obviously there's a whole lot you have to do when you create a UI. All right, so that's kind of cool. It can't do it, but it gave us some information on how to do it. All right. So with that, hopefully you found this really useful. I mean, I think where this beats out something like Googling or Stack Overflowing or anything like that, I mean, look at where we started. Create an application. Okay, well, we'll give you a little bit of information. And I kept asking questions and I kept saying, hey, I'd like to do this or I'd like to do that. And at least in this chat that we did here, it basically understood everything that I threw at it, which is pretty awesome. So hopefully you can see how this is very valuable. If you have not used ChatGPT in your developer life or whatever, I highly recommend giving this a shot because, again, it is an excellent way to prototype things. Not that you're going to use everything exactly how it is, but it can also give you ideas. Now, here's one other thing I want to point out that's amazing. Okay. So like this op amp overview, I asked this question because I was Googling around like, hey, what is an op amp? And I couldn't get, there's so many articles on the internet about why you should use this op amp or whatever. I'm like, no, I want to know what an op amp is. And ChatGPT gave it to me. Well, check it out. I did that a little over a month ago. I can always come back to this chat and look at what my progress was. And if I have some other idea a week from now, I can be like, hey, I want to add whether a player is left-handed or right-handed. I could have done this a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever. Adding the information as left-handed is a valuable addition to your baseball game application. Let's enhance the existing TypeScript. So they're going to update the player interface. Look right here, handedness. It even named it well. Like, come on, man. This is awesome. Truly awesome. So just remember that's where I find that this tool for developers is just so valuable in there's a building context of what you're asking for. Like anytime as a developer over the past 30 years, I've asked information, I'll go to Google and I'll search for it and it'll give you a little chunk of something, right? And it's almost always out of context. And you as a developer mentally have to fit it into whatever your program is, whatever your context is. When you have a tool like this that remembers what you were talking about, it has the modeling context that you've already given it. So if I come back later and I say, wow, okay, you know what else would be valuable? I would like to add a speed rating to a player. Like this is all stuff. I didn't plan this out, right? This is all things that I've just been thinking about. To add a speed rating to a player, we can update the player capability. Oh, that's interesting. So player capability has a position, a rating, and a speed rating. So what's really interesting about that is when I asked the question, I was actually thinking about for the player. But this kind of makes this makes sense in that some players are much faster in the infield, like they react to balls better. Some might be faster in the outfield. So this might be a really interesting thing to have that speed rating per position per player. So again, I may not have even come up with that. I'm not sure if I'd stick with this, but it is a pretty cool thing here that I may not have even considered. So at any rate, again, I think the power, the beauty in this is just the fact that you can always come back to it and add more context later and see how it would add to it, and then see how you'd want to implement that in your actual program. So with that, I think one other thing I'd like to share, like I mentioned, the op amp overview, like one thing that I found that's gotten a little bit annoying with the Googles and Bings and everything over time is now when you search for something like I want to know what an op amp was, or what is a second order crossover design and speaker stuff, right? If I start searching for that on the internet and I put what is a crossover design for speakers, a lot of times you're going to get ads for speakers and ads for capacitors and resistors and all kinds of stuff. It's like, man, I want to know how it's done. One of the things I found is ChatGPT just answers questions, right? Like, it's not throwing ads at you. It's not throwing products for sale. It's none of that. You don't have to wade through 3 pages of garbage to find what you're looking for. You ask it a question and you have it. I think I asked this question about, hey, what's the best shortstop baseball glove? And it came back with a really good answer. Shortstops generally use gloves with a size ranging from 11.5 to 11.75 inches. This kind of information, it was straight to the point and fast. So again, as a developer and as a person who is looking for information, I find this to be a very valuable tool. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this and hopefully you got something out of this, and maybe this will spark some ideas for what you can do with the AI technologies out there now and see how it can help, supplement your tool set, right? Like this is a tool that you should have and you should use, and all it's going to do is make us better over time. So appreciate the time. If you like this, enjoyed it, please do give it a thumbs up and share it with people, and subscribe if you want. And hopefully see you soon. Appreciate it.